Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 5:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Congressman Matt Rosendale joins us as Joe Biden has us on the verge of World War III. We'll get Congressman Rosendale's reaction to all of the late-breaking developments there. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let's go to the phones. This will bring us nicely into our next topic. Donna is here from Frederick on line 5. Hello, Donna. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Well, hello, Vince. I hope you're having a good afternoon.
I am.
I was listening to that report. You know, they're in panic mode over Matt Gaetz.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I think the majority of the people, we know how we voted. It would really be nice if we knew the exact truth about how we voted, which, you know, the days go by and the count goes on and on. I am sick of these games, and I can assure you, most Americans are sick of it too. And whatever President Trump has to do to push his appointees through, it needs to be done. We are so fed up as citizens with all this garbage and all the game playing they do in D.C.
Yes.
And that vote was a referendum against them and their hidden agendas.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, MTG has a point. If they're going to start going after exposing Matt Gaetz, well, let's open the whole thing and let's see about, I seem to remember we had a madam once in D.C. You know, I wonder where the money is with all of that and how she conveniently disappeared. I'd like to learn the truth.
Yeah.
We deserve that much.
This is, so many excellent points. So you're making me think of a bunch of things. One of them is, why would I trust you? You're telling me Matt Gaetz is an awful person. Let's first assess your credibility and what you have said in the past. And every time one of these stupid things come up, we call them scandals. Every time we have a scandal in Washington, have you noticed how frequently they are concocted and invented and disgraceful and slanderous? Look at the Brett Kavanaugh saga. Oh, yeah, Brett Kavanaugh was going to rape parties and handing out solo cups to the people who were in line at the rape party. This is the kind of garbage that was put before the American people, designed to make permanent Democrat power at the expense of real people's lives, to destroy them. That is the game that they constantly play, always and forever. That is the game. So if you are still the kind of sucker who falls for it out the gate, when they come out and they go, well, that Matt Gaetz, he's an awful person, you should know. I just trust me on this one. Really? Because as I remember, Donna, the United States Department of Justice leaked the existence of an investigation into sex trafficking by Matt Gaetz. And then once the political utility of that supposed investigation disappeared, so too did the investigation. They said, well, we closed it because we found no evidence of wrongdoing. Of course, none of this was done publicly. All of this was done by the way of leaks. Correct. And an obsequious media that carried the water of a Justice Department that was abusing its power in order to hurt their political opponents. And so
exactly.
And so if the FBI,
what Nancy Pelosi calls the wrap-up smear.
It's the wrap-up
That's
smear.
What it is.
You're right.
They're
and if
experts at that, and what they do, they project what they themselves do on everybody else who doesn't behave that way. And I think that's what we need to emphasize.
Yes, and so the FBI here, look, if it's not good enough for the FBI, you think the FBI is pulling punches for Matt Gaetz? Be honest. You think the FBI would say in a million years would go easy on Matt Gaetz, Matthew Gaetz, of all people? The FBI would say, you know what? Let's give that guy a mulligan. That guy, he's actually pretty nice. Let's just go easy on him. Yeah, we've got the goods on him, but we're not going to go after him. No, that's not the way it works. With Matt Gaetz, if he even sniffed the wrong way and they thought they could charge it, they would. Meanwhile, Joe Biden steals classified documents. They issue an entire report about how they're not going to charge him because he's too demented to stand trial. This is the justice system that we're dealing with right now. And lastly, Donna, while I'm leapfrogging all over the points that you're making, and thank you for making them, you've got a situation here where Congress, since 1997, according to Real Clear Politics, which had an excellent report on the subject, and that was back in 2021. So since then, it's been updated. But since 1997 all the way to 2021, Congress has paid out $18.2 million. $18.2 million in order to make harassment claims go away. They have a settlement slush fund in Congress. And so We've arrived at a story today where Congress is debating whether private citizen, no longer Congressman, private citizen Matt Gaetz should be subjected to the release of a report done by a political body designed to besmirch him. That's the question before us today. And so, as you point out, as Marjorie Taylor Greene points out, if that's the game plan, if you're going to release a report designed merely to make him look bad, despite the mountain of evidence that we shouldn't trust you, and there is no basis to believe that there's something untoward about Matt Gaetz and that he's perfectly acceptable as Attorney General of the United States, well, then let's take it to the next level. Let's open the books on the entire $18.2 million and counting congressional slush fund designed to insulate members of Congress from embarrassment using American taxpayer dollars to cover up the scandals within their own offices. Do you think that's a good idea?
Oh, my goodness. They are so criminal. You know what? I can't wait for it all to be, declassify all of it. I'm so sick of all their cover-ups. They're criminal. They are horribly criminal. And people need to really understand the danger we are in because of this behavior.
Yes.
It is just disgusting, and people are fed up.
Yeah, amen. All right, Donna, thank you as always for your call. Inspiring and aggravating to think about all of this. I really appreciate that. I want to dive deeper into this today. You know, that the House Ethics Committee, they met today, and they're all arguing like, cats with one another. And it came out today that they're not releasing, well, at least publicly, the Matt Gaetz report. But you know these people. Look, in Washington, you can't even protect Supreme Court decisions anymore in advance of their release. Supreme Court opinions are being leaked from the court. You think Congress, of all places, is going to keep this under seal? No, it's all the components of it are going to leak. It's going to be designed to be as damaging as they possibly can muster. But as of today, the ethics chairman, Michael Guest, Republican of Mississippi, told reporters, quote, there is not an agreement by the committee to release the report. It was a 2-hour meeting. It was a standoff. Everybody's yelling at each other about releasing this thing. Congressman Guest says it's not happening. And which brings me to a piece by Molly Hemingway from The Federalist. Molly is a hero, and I want to share this with you. This is from a couple days ago. But it goes directly to why, once again, you shouldn't have any trust into this process. Her headline was, House probe into Matt Gaetz relies on witnesses that DOJ found lacked credibility. Yes, that's right. The Biden-Harris Justice Department found that the witnesses lacked credibility. She writes that the last 8 years of the Department of Justice have been a disaster for the rule of law. The sprawling intelligence and law enforcement agency ran the Russia collusion hoax, hamstringing President Donald Trump during his entire first term in office. It interfered in the 2020 election by falsely telling social media companies that a laptop with incriminating information about the Biden family business was Russian disinformation, and telling them to censor speech and debate about the topic. Under President Joe Biden, the department ran 2 norm-obliterating politicized prosecutions against Trump in an effort to silence, bankrupt, imprison, and defeat him. Instead of rooting out the corruption at the department, most of permanent D.C. did absolutely nothing in response. Yet somehow the chattering class was shocked when Trump nominated loyal foot soldier Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican of Florida, to be Attorney General in Trump's second term and to fix DOJ. Gaetz had proven to be one of the most effective advocates against corruption at DOJ and was unwilling to back down in the face of overwhelming public pressure. However, Gaetz does not fit the education or experience profile of many previous attorneys general and has limited experience practicing law. Many Americans are sick and tired of elected officials and media pundits doing nothing as DOJ attempts to destroy the country with its abuse of the rule of law. Among the many powerful figures in Washington, D.C. opposed to the Gaetz nomination are some who are attempting to thwart it by releasing a report from the House Ethics Committee that will attempt to tie Gaetz to salacious allegations involving child sex trafficking. The report comes years after the DOJ dropped its investigation into the same claims on the grounds that the 2 central witnesses had serious credibility issues. Yet these are the same 2 central witnesses that the House Ethics Committee has relied on for its critical report of Gaetz. The same report it is leaking to compliant reporters as a part of a coordinated effort to thwart his nomination as President-elect Donald Trump's next Attorney General. So, again, just to dwell on this point for a moment, the Biden DOJ dropped the case because of credibility issues, serious credibility issues with the same two central witnesses that the House Ethics Committee spoke to. Any lessons from this story? You picking up any lessons here? What that might mean about this entire thing, about this whole charade? She goes on, the two witnesses have massive credibility problems. The claims arose from Joel Greenberg, one of the most corrupt Florida politicians of all time, according to Florida reporter Mark Caputo, who is now with the anti-Trump media outlet The Bulwark. Among many things, the former Seminole County tax collector admitted to as a part of a wide-ranging case for which he is currently serving 11 years in prison was falsely accusing local political opponent Brian Butte of having sex with a minor, similar to the outlandish claim that he made against Gaetz. Got it? So one of the key people here, one of the key witnesses, falsely claimed that one of his political opponents was guilty of having sex with a minor, the same outlandish claim he made against Matt Gaetz. He admitted to that first lie. Greenberg also reportedly later attempted to frame his own attorney with pornographic images of children. One New York Times write-up of Greenberg was headlined, quote, like the Tiger King got elected tax collector. In other words, the guy's a theatrical liar. According to the Washington Post, Greenberg admitted to, quote, fabricating allegations against a school teacher who was running against him to be a tax collector. Greenberg had sent letters to the school, falsely claiming that the teacher had an inappropriate sexual relationship with a student. A similar allegation to the Gaetz case. U.S. District Judge Gregory Presnell, appointed by President Bill Clinton, said that Greenberg's actions against that innocent victim were, quote, downright evil. The politicized employees at DOJ have shown themselves willing to explore novel legal theories and bend federal rules to the breaking point in pursuit of their most reviled political opponents, most notably former and future President Trump. Gaetz has a reputation as one of the most tenacious cross-examiners of Justice Department officials from his perch on the House Judiciary Committee. Yet even the DOJ was unwilling to exploit Greenberg's unsubstantiated claims, apart from leaking them to the press to hurt Gaetz's reputation. They announced their closure of the investigation in 2022. The House Ethics Committee, however, decided to pick up the dropped and deflated ball and run with it a full year after DOJ dropped the investigation. The fact that the disgraced Greenberg was cooperating with the House Ethics Committee was shared for publication with the New York Times and other media outlets. There you go. So a well-established liar is the basis for this. The news media, quote, should not be laundering smears from people in prison, end quote, a Gaetz spokesman said at the time. Gaetz speculated that the House Ethics investigation was actually punishment for his leading role in the controversial defenestration of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a move that angered many of his Republican colleagues, in case you were looking for a motive here. The colorful representative and Trump ally has also won few friends on the Hill by pointing out his colleagues' suspicious stock trades. Prior to marrying Ginger Lucky in 2021 and settling down, he had a reputation in D.C. for being a partier and dating many women. So she keeps going on. I can't recommend, first of all, Molly Hemingway's work enough. She's just wonderful. But the piece is House probe into Matt Gaetz relies on witnesses DOJ found lacked credibility. And in case you have any doubts about what's happening here, just read through this. Just read through the piece. And once again, set your mind at ease that the same awful people who are using awful tactics are up to it again. Up to it again. And so now we have, what do we have on Capitol Hill today? Matt Gaetz and J.D. Vance are roaming the halls of the Capitol today, making their case for why Gaetz should be the Attorney General of the United States. And at this point, with each passing day, the more evidence that I find that the entire system is weaponized against him, the more I want him to be Attorney General of the United States. That's the lesson I've walked away with. After all of this, good. You hate him? I want. Well, things are reaching new levels between Ukraine and Russia at the behest of the Biden administration. Earlier this week, Biden giving the green light to firing those long-range missiles directly into Russia. So Ukraine took Biden up on the offer. Meanwhile, Russia escalating everything now, saying that This may invite them to go nuclear. That can't be good. And then today, the update here, the Biden administration has now greenlit another thing. They want to cover the Ukrainian countryside in American-made landmines. Why is a lame duck president escalating this war to unseen levels? We'll ask Congressman Matt Rosendale joining us next on the Vince Colonnese Show. Hey there, 535 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. If things aren't hot enough right now between Russia and Ukraine, Joe Biden appears this week to have made them even hotter. The lame duck president okaying the use of long-range missiles directly into Russian territory. This means we have American service members who are helping to fire missiles right now into Russia, given that important, sophisticated technology and the role that Americans are need to play when we fire those missiles. Also, today, the Biden administration signed off on allowing American anti-personnel mines to dot the Ukrainian countryside in order to shore up the Ukrainian front lines against the Russian military, although that appears to fly directly in the face of the Biden administration's declared policy from June of 2022, where they said they would no longer be using anti-personnel landmines. In fact, that's because these weapons have disproportionate impact on civilians, including children, long after the fighting has stopped. What is going on here? Let's bring in Congressman Matt Rosendale. He represents Montana's 2nd Congressional District, and he's been very concerned about this for a long time. Congressman, good to have you back with us, sir.
Vince, it is great to be with you, my friend.
Okay, so we've got missiles, American missiles, being operated by American troops, if I understand this correctly, flying into Russian territory, and additionally, American landmines that are going to go down now on the ground in Ukraine. So this seems to be escalating to unseen levels, Congressman.
It is, and it's very disturbing to me. This is the first I heard about the landmines, Vince, so I'm glad that you brought that up. I had heard and commented on the long-range missiles being used and authorized, American long-range missiles, and as you said, the crew to launch them being used in Ukraine to attack targets inside of Russia. This is very, very dangerous. We should not be involved in it. I don't understand why we don't exercise our authority as Congress to say, we haven't signed off on this. We do not authorize this. Bring it up to a vote. If there's 218 members of Congress that want to declare war on Russia and get us involved in this, then let them do so. But I am very troubled and disturbed by the fact that the Biden administration and a lot of other people continue to stand by and allow this expansion of this conflict. It's dangerous.
It is very dangerous, and last I checked, they haven't consulted with Congress, as is constitutionally mandated, in order to seek a declaration of war, because now we've got all sorts of American assets in the region at war with Russia.
Yeah, and Russia has utilized up to, it looks like, 12,000 North Korean troops to stage there either on the border of Ukraine or actually in Ukraine. Who knows, the border is not clearly marked, so they could be going inside of there. And again, that's an escalation on their side. But all of this continues to take place because people on both sides are continuing to fund it and to fund it at ever higher levels, and it's very problematic. So, Vince, you and I have spoke about this a long time. I called for the United States to not be involved in this 2 years ago, 2+ years ago, and said we should not be getting involved in it, and we continue to get sucked deeper and deeper into it, both financially and from a human standpoint.
Yes, I want to talk about that abuse of the American people in a moment, more of it in a moment, but I want to focus for a moment on Vladimir Putin, because earlier this week, it appears in reaction to the Biden administration escalating the conflict, they have lowered their threshold for what they consider acceptable nuclear war. And that includes if a nuclear-backed power assists a country like Ukraine in attacking the Russian mainland. So it looks like we're now tripping the very wires that Vladimir Putin has put in place in terms of making nuclear warfare fair game. How concerned are you about how Russia is going to respond to all this?
I would like to think that we are still not close to entering into a nuclear conflict. Okay, I will go to sleep tonight. I will go to sleep tonight, not concerned about a nuclear conflict. However, the weapons that are being used and the amount of troops that are being utilized and the American troops that are being drawn deeper into this conflict does give me concern.
Russia, additionally, the New York Post reports it has started building nuclear-resistant bomb shelters in the midst of all of this. Russia has started mass-producing mobile bomb shelters capable of withstanding nuclear bombs, while ominously accusing President Biden of risking a potential World War III. So at the very least, what we're seeing from Russia right now, Congressman, is a very aggressive form of saber rattling where they're making it appear like, oh, we could use nukes at any moment. In fact, we're so prepared, we're building nuclear bomb shelters.
I think that is probably, again, not being a part of the State Department or the Department of Defense, I think that is probably less expensive for them to build than it is to try and continue to fund this war that they've been involved in quite some time. Look, Russia does not have the finances to fund a war machine at the same capacity that the United States does. We've got the Federal Reserve, that unfortunately we continue to take advantage of, that provides all the artificial money that the military-industrial complex across our nation needs to continue to fund their operations, which then funds the military operations in Ukraine, and Russia doesn't have that. So what they can do is try to show that they are willing to engage in a nuclear battle, and hopefully, that scares the bejeebies out of this administration enough, or causes enough of a public outcry that we can start seeking some kind of an agreement instead of continuing to destroy a nation and kill people.
That's right. No, I think you're totally right. And Congressman Rosendale, I'm just concerned about how this is going because I don't trust the Biden administration to handle it. And if disaster is ahead, I sense the Biden administration's fingerprints will be all over it. So I don't like that. Also, we have a situation where Russia in particular has the most nuclear weapons of any country on planet Earth. That includes the United States. And if they become increasingly desperate, you don't really want desperate people to be holding nukes. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I tell you what would be even more dangerous, and that is if they just start selling them to rogue countries.
Yes,
that would be more dangerous than keeping them maintained in Russia.
So on the American side of this equation, in terms of what the kind of money that we've sent out, the kind of the weaponry, all of that. Earlier this year, there was a big fight in April, one of many, over sending Ukraine more funding. And at the time, in that legislation, in that tranche of aid, there was language in the bill, which eventually became law, that said that after the election, President Biden can forgive the, quote, loan that we were giving to Ukraine to the tune of 50% of the loan. So, in other words, after the election, once the political consequences were gone, Joe Biden could announce that we are going to cut that loan obligation by 50%. Well, it turns out this week, the Biden administration has made this announcement. They're now attempting to, quote, forgive the half of the money that U.S. taxpayers sent to Ukraine in April of this year. And they're trying to do it quickly without any of us noticing, Congressman. What do you make of that?
It's terrible, and this is exactly what we were talking about. So it's $9.65 billion in forgivable. It was identified as forgivable loans to Ukraine's government. And we knew at the time, if the language was in there that said they were forgivable, that guess what? They were going to be forgiven. So $4.65 billion is forgiven now. And guess what? They were counting on Biden going back into office again. And so there's another provision that the remaining 50% can be forgiven after January 2026. Vince, this is an incredible amount of money. But guess what? Congress has designated more than $173 billion to this conflict since its beginning. And the American people, meanwhile, are trying to figure out why the Biden administration isn't providing FEMA funding to help people who have Trump signs in their front yard down in North Carolina get their house repaired. And I received a report today from the United States Department of State, okay, a congressional report, and listen to this. Within this letter it says, further, economic assistance to Ukraine from other partners. Further, economic assistance to Ukraine from other partners far exceeds that of the United States. Tell me, who has contributed more than $173 billion
Nobody.
to Ukraine?
Nobody.
For this cause? Nobody has. And we still don't have an accurate accounting, and I still contend that a lot of this money is being laundered and sent back to different individuals and different industries within our nation to profit.
Right. I mean, this goes back to a point that I think you and I have discussed before. If you're looking to try and figure out how legitimate this faraway concern is, look no further than the countries who are closest to Ukraine. Poland last year stopped sending weapons to Ukraine. They stopped sending weapons to Ukraine. Now, I was told a million times, Congressman Rosendale, I don't know about you, but I've been told a lot that once Putin takes over Ukraine, he's coming for Poland next, right? I've heard this a million times. Then why is Poland not sending weapons to Ukraine? Why does Poland think it's time to cut back? And the idea that Europe is not ponying up the money here, as usual, and the United States ends up wearing the entire burden of this, it just goes to show you the perpetual abuse of the American taxpayer. And it's not just by our own government, but instead by governments all around the planet.
That is exactly so. And again, I just am not convinced that all of this money is being spent to wage a war, okay, or defend a country. But even if it was, the United States should not be involved in that conflict. I think that part of this is a big result of Norway and Sweden being brought into NATO. I think when you start expanding where the territory is, or the protected territory, and you start encroaching closer to Russia, Putin said, I don't want any more of these NATO allies being added to the list to encroach on my border, and I don't blame him. And all of a sudden he says, okay, we've got Biden because of all these other weaknesses and deficiencies that he's shown in his leadership. Finally, after several years of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the opening of the Nord Stream 2 gas line, he finally just said, what the heck? You're going to bring in Norway and Sweden. I'm going to go ahead and take part of, if not all of Ukraine, and this is where it's going to land.
I just don't trust this guy.
These people need to be forced to the table to find some kind of agreement.
So Congressman, here's the reality of all of this. The American people are tired of this crap. They're tired of it.
Yeah.
They voted for Trump to replace Biden in no small part because they believe that he is the steadier hand. They want him in charge of this. So what do we get in this last week? As Joe Biden is a lame duck president of the United States, he has authorized deep into Russia missile strikes that are guided by U.S. GPS systems, assisted by American troops, and then additionally now, as I pointed out at the top, American anti-personnel mines being put into Ukraine. And I'm here to say this is not what the voters want. He's making the most escalatory efforts after the voters have already smacked him down.
And Congress should be doing their job and screaming for a halt to this. These are unilateral decisions being made by the executive, and it is about time that Congress actually reclaimed its position as an equal branch of government.
Yeah, for sure. Congressman Rosendale, always good to talk to you. Thank you for your perspective, sir. Really appreciate you today. Well. Oh, even Democrat Congressman Jason Crow went on CNN today after he found out that Biden is going to put landmines all over the Ukrainian countryside. Not Biden himself, of course. Biden can barely walk across the room, but somebody will be doing it with his name on the signature line. And here's how Congressman Jason Crow reacted today.
And on the landmine thing, I disagree with that decision as well. I think it would be setting a dangerous precedent. There's an anti-landmine treaty. These are weapons that the United States should be leading to prevent the use of around the world. And I just don't like the idea of that precedent being set here and creating permission for that.
You know, President Trump has reportedly begun receiving the intelligence briefings. That's according to, now, I haven't seen an official statement from him on this subject, but the Washington Post this week has a report, from yesterday. President-elect Donald Trump is now receiving intelligence briefings. And they're so, what a bunch of, these people are awful. The lead sentence on the piece, President-elect Donald Trump, the only former president to have been charged with mishandling classified information, has begun receiving intelligence briefing, U.S. officials said. That entire newsroom should be fired. It's just completely awful. And I should point out, in the very same piece, goes out of its way to say that Biden was never found guilty of anything that they could possibly charge for his handling of classified documents. They said, a special counsel in 2023 was appointed to investigate Biden taking classified documents to his personal properties after he left the vice presidency in 2017. Earlier this year, special counsel Robert K. Hur concluded that Biden was careless in handling the material, but that no chargeable crime was committed. That is not in the least what he concluded. He concluded they couldn't take it to trial because Joe Biden was too demented for a jury to find willful intent. Oh, my gosh. But now Trump's getting the briefings, apparently, if you can believe the Washington Post, which you can't, so maybe he's not. But if he is, at least somebody with his wits about him is finding out what's going on. Now he just needs to get into the Oval Office so he can make things better. Can't come soon enough. 2 months from today, if you can believe it. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.